Guys, today I'm going to tell you about the ultimate power move that makes every toxic boss look like a saint picture. This year's CEO is so fed up with the entire company that he decides to make the office goldfish the new CFO. But this isn't some modern corporate drama, this is 39 at Rome, and that boss controlled the entire known world. Meet Caligula, the emperor who looked at Rome's highest political office and said, "You know who'd be better at this job than all these politicians? My horse." And then he actually did it. This isn't some fairy tale, this really happened. And the reason behind it is way more sinister than you think. First, let's set the scene. Caligula became emperor at 24. And everyone was initially excited. The previous emperor, Tiberius, was a paranoid hermit. So people thought this young, charismatic new leader would bring change. Plot twist, absolute power completely fried this kid's brain. By 39 AD, Caligula had already declared himself a living god, forced people to worship statues of him, blown the entire treasury on luxury parties, started executing anyone who looked at him wrong. But that wasn't enough. Caligula needed a bigger power flex, something that would make everyone understand I am the boss here. Then he looked at Rome's political system, specifically the consulship, basically president or prime minister, and thought, you know what would really shut up these self-important politicians? Caligula's horse was named Incitatus, Latin for swift. This wasn't just any horse, this was a prize racehorse living in a marble stable with an ivory manger, purple blankets, and a dedicated team of servants. Basically, this horse lived better than 99% of Roman citizens. But Caligula thought that wasn't enough. He was like, why should my horse just enjoy luxury? It should have political power. So he announced he was making Incitatus consul. Picture this scene. Rome's highest political office, usually held by experienced politicians, generals, or nobles, was going to a horse. It is like Elon Musk announcing his pet dog as Tesla's new chairman, except with way higher stakes because this involved running an entire empire now. A lot of people think Caligula was just insane, but modern historians think there was deeper political calculation here. Making a horse consul wasn't random madness, it was the ultimate insult to Rome's entire political class. Caligula was basically saying, you senators, nobles, politicians are all trash. My horse is more qualified to run this country than any of you. In fact, let me prove it. This was history's most expensive, most public screw you. Imagine working at a big company where the new CEO is so disgusted with management that he announces at an all-hands meeting, I think my pet hamster has better business sense than all you VPS combined. So it is now head of sales. Except Caligula had the power to actually do it. But why a horse? Why not a dog, cat, or other animal? Simple. Because it was the biggest insult possible in Roman culture. Horses were noble animals, but they were still animals. By choosing a horse, Caligula was saying, even the most noble beast deserves more respect than you human politicians. This was also a power test. Caligula wanted to see how absurd he could make things and still have people go along with it. If I can get the entire empire to accept a horse as consul, that proves my power is absolute. There is nothing I can't do. It is a classic dictator move, testing and consolidating control by making people participate in absurd behavior. Imagine being a Roman senator hearing this news. You've spent decades building a political career, survived countless elections and power struggles, dreaming of maybe one day becoming consul, the highest honor of the Roman Republic. Then the emperor announces he is giving that position to a horse. A horse, not an experienced general, not a brilliant politician, not a respected noble. A horse. The senators had to sit there, smile, and nod like this was a great idea because opposing the emperor meant death. Some sources record senators actually visiting Incitatus like it was a real political figure. Picture these serious politicians standing in a stable having political discussions with a horse. Consul Incitatus, what are your thoughts on the new tax policy? Horse Nazi, very insightful. While this sounds like comedy, the consequences were real. By making a horse consul, Caligula effectively paralyzed Rome's political system. Consuls were supposed to do actual work, sign laws, preside over meetings, make important decisions. A horse obviously couldn't do these things. So effectively, Caligula was making all decisions on the horse's behalf. This gave him more direct power while bypassing traditional checks and balances. It is like a CEO making his pet the board chairman, then saying, since my dog can't talk, I'll make all decisions on its behalf. Suddenly, the board becomes a rubber stamp. Caligula also used this as an opportunity to humiliate specific political enemies. He reportedly made certain senators bow to the horse or required them to ask for the horse's opinion on matters. Let's talk about what Incitatus's daily routine looked like as consul. Every morning, servants would dress the horse in official purple robes, the color reserved for high Roman officials. The horse would be led to government buildings where actual political business was supposed to happen. Picture this: serious Roman officials standing around a horse in a toga, pretending to have policy discussions. Consul Incitatus, the Germanic tribes are causing trouble on the northern border. What is your military strategy? Brilliant. A defensive approach focused on resource conservation. The absurdity was off the charts, but everyone had to play along or risk execution. Making a horse consul wasn't just politically insane, it was financially devastating. Consuls received massive salaries, luxury accommodations, and entertainment budgets. All of this was now going to a horse plus. Caligula spent enormous amounts on the horse's political career, custom-made togas, a dedicated staff, special transportation, and elaborate ceremonies. It is like a modern government spending millions of taxpayer dollars on a golden doghouse for the president's pet, then giving that pet a cabinet position with full salary and benefits. The Roman treasury was already strained from Caligula's other excesses, and the horse consul situation made everything worse. Word of Rome's horse consul spread throughout the ancient world, and other kingdoms were baffled. Foreign ambassadors arriving in Rome had to figure out diplomatic protocol for meeting with the horse. Do you bow to it? Do you bring gifts? How do you negotiate treaties with an animal? Some sources suggest that enemy kingdoms use this as propaganda. Look how weak Rome has become. They're ruled by a horse. It was like if the President of the United States made his cat Secretary of State, and then other world leaders had to figure out how to conduct international relations with the feline. The whole situation damaged Rome's international reputation and credibility. The Praetorian Guard, basically the emperor's secret service, had to protect a horse like it was a human political figure. Imagine being an elite soldier whose job is now make sure nobody assassinates the consul horse. These were battle-hardened warriors who had fought in real wars, and now they were standing guard over a stable. Treating potential horse thieves like threats to national security, the psychological toll on the military was significant. When your commander-in-chief makes you salute a horse, it is hard to maintain respect for the chain of command. By 41 AD, the horse consul situation had become a symbol of everything wrong with Caligula's reign. The final straw came when Caligula announced he was considering making Incitatus a god as well, not just consul, but an actual deity that Romans would have to worship. This was too much even for a population that had already accepted a horse politician. The Praetorian Guard, senators, and military officers realized that if they didn't act soon, they might end up worshipping a horse as their supreme deity while it held the highest political office in the empire. The assassination plot that killed Caligula specifically cited the horse consul as evidence that the emperor had completely lost touch with reality. After Caligula's death, the new emperor Claudius immediately revoked all of Incitatus's political appointments. The horse went back to being just a horse, probably confused about why people suddenly stopped bowing to it, but the damage was done. The horse consul incident became a cautionary tale about unchecked power and the dangers of authoritarian leadership. Modern political scientists still study this case as an example of how dictators use absurd behavior to test loyalty and break down institutional resistance. When people accept a horse as their political leader, they've essentially given up on rational governance entirely. The story also shows how quickly political norms can collapse when there are no effective checks on power. Rome went from a functioning republic to horse consul in just a few decades. Today, whenever politicians do something completely absurd, historians sometimes reference Caligula's horse as the ultimate example of power gone mad. The lesson: democracy and institutional checks exist for a reason, because without them, you might literally end up with a horse running your country. And honestly, considering some modern political situations, maybe Incitatus wouldn't have done worse than some human politicians. At least the horse was honest about just being a horse. Subscribe to Wacky History for more stories of power gone completely insane.